So how many of you decided to be born as male or female? None of you, right? I mean, we can self-determine our gender identity. We can self-determine our sexual orientation, but we cannot self-determine our sex characteristics. When a baby is born, if a baby is having that stereotypical male reproductive organ, we call it as male. When the baby is having a stereotypical female reproductive organ, we call it as female. When the baby is having neither a male or a female-like reproductive system, which cannot be easily classified into either male or female, then these babies are known as intersex. Not all intersex conditions are visible during the birth. There are 40 plus diverse intersex variations, and intersex people can identify themselves as male, female. They can identify as a man, women, and a transgender person, and they can have any sexual orientation too. So, India is with more than at least 20 million intersex people. And intersex people are not transgender people. Transgender is a gender identity, whereas intersex is a sex characteristics. On the day one, these babies are born, there is a kind of social emergency because parents ask, oh, like what is the baby? Oh, we are classifying it, just, wait, we are running some tests for the baby. Simple chromosome can determine the sex identity of the baby? Means no. This procedure called normalizing the baby started in United States in early 1960s. It was exported. It was like spreaded like a virus everywhere then. They believed male and female are the only sex, and these infants identified with intersex traits, they had to undergo a procedure in which immediately a kind of, a sex will be assigned to them. To inherit the properties, they are assigned as male in India, in the Western India, and in the Southern India alone last year, at least 300 children went through this surgery. This is the record from the government hospitals in Tamil Nadu. We don't know how much, that's the number from the private clinics. So we don't have a medical protocol in place to regulate these surgeries. When these babies undergo these surgeries, they don't have the right over the body. They don't own the very kind of bodily integrity which is conferred by our constitution to every individual. April 24th, Tamil Nadu, Madras High Court, Madurai bench directed an order saying that this normalizing surgeries cannot be performed on these children, and they referred our work for their judgment. We serve the diverse SOGIESC community. What is SOGIESC? That is sexual orientation, gender identity, expression, and sex characteristics. This diverse SOGIESC communities, which were earlier known as LGBTQIA plus communities, we use a common umbrella term, SOGIESC, because it is not limiting to one particular identity. India became the first country in the world to have a legal regime through the Madras High Court Madurai bench judgment to protect the human rights of intersex children. After Malta, Tamil Nadu became the second place. So what is happening with these intersex children? Where they are going? I know this is a worst example I'm comparing. You know a lot of stray dogs. To operate these stray dogs in India, we do have a policy. Our constitution is the most highly inclusive constitution in the world, but we rarely enact our constitution in our laws. Our constitution is inclusive, but our laws are not inclusive. So we specifically work to make our laws more inclusive. Because there was no space, we created the space. So coming back to the very kind of surgeries and the issues around these surgeries, we didn't had a specific regulation because for stray dogs, to operate stray dogs, whether it is in Kashmir or whether it is in Kanyakumari, whether it is in Bombay or whether it is in the Mizoram, we have a common protocol to operate them which is approved by the Animal Husbandry Board, and it need to have a lot of clearance so that the local corporations will implement them. To operate a stray dog, which is very important to sterilize them, we have a policy, but then why we don't have a policy for these intersex infants and children? Every year, at least 10,000 newborn intersex infants go through this horrible procedure. And we try to create a mechanism because I believe protest is a powerful weapon, but that is not answer for everything, because if Baba Saheb Ambedkar would have protested, he would have not studied in LSE or Columbia and coming back and sitting and giving us a great constitution back. So what we miss is constructive activism. Constructive activism. What is constructive activism? An athlete who won 11 international medals for India was stripped off and kept nude for more than 7 hours in front of 11 male doctors. In sports, only women need to undergo sex verification test. This Dalit Hindu athlete from the rural Tamil Nadu won 11 international medals. In 2006, during the last government regime, she was kept nude. No one questioned about it. It was a literal rape what she went through. Just because she won 11 international medals. With one pair of borrowed shoes, she won 11 international medals. Their parents didn't have TV to watch her winning a medal. And she was working in a bricklin. People were busy in making movies on her life. She didn't got single penny. I took up the case. I represented her in the various statutory bodies to make her to understand, you're right, the system is wrong, believe yourself. And we got her a job with the State Sports Development Authority in Tamil Nadu. And we told her that you cannot run. They can stop your dream, but they cannot stop your talents. You can train more children, the rural girls from the rural villages in Tamil Nadu, which increased the visibility of the girl athletes. In some way, it contributed to their empowerment in the down south. Shanti's case is one case, but there are many cases. When I started Srishti, it was not our passion. We didn't have space. Having someone to talk can save a life. That was the very kind of motto behind that. So we launched 24/7 helpline. We study about rockets. We study about what is underneath us, but we don't study about what is inside our body. Apart from male, female, and transgender people, there are more than 58 gender identities. And everything is not black and white. Pink is not for girls, blue is not for boys. And like our kings and queens wore more jewels. Our kings wore more jewels and had longer hair than women. And when, this kind of stereotyping, especially with the very kind of identity which starts with a cloth or an appearance, is an absurdity. So when we started this helpline, we got a lot of calls, and we were the first people to engage these community members in their regional language. We created regional terms for them. My gender pronoun, I'm more comfortable in Z or they. And I changed at least more than 12 schools because I was not comfortable. Even, including here, like in many spaces, even we don't have a proper place where we can comfortably pee and loo. This is a kind of system which we are trying to question the heteronormative Victorian values, which is suddenly imbibed, or, then how come we can have all those beautiful gods and goddesses in the whole world? India is the only country which have gender-specific spaces dedicated to certain gods and goddesses who are the patron gods for the larger gender diverse communities. So coming back to the helpline, when we got a call from a parent that, listen, our child, we don't know the sex of the child, because initially the doctor said it is a male, then the second week the doctor said no, it is a female, then again they are saying they need to run through some tests, but we don't know what to do. So they left the child in Kara system. I said, no, don't do it, because they are from the very coolie background, daily wages. And when we went to the Kara system, every single intersex children are mentioned as transgender child. What is the word transgender child? It is quite unscientific. Intersex children are not transgender children. How come a central adopting agency can have that? And after this judgment, I went to the Director of Medical Education in Tamil Nadu. Meanwhile, the Deputy Director General of WHO, Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, by herself, she wrote an email appreciating the judgment because it was inspired by Srishti's work. And then she introduced me to certain officials, and then when we went and sat with them, they are just doctors. They are just doctors who deal with specific human parts. We don't have medical ethics in our medical practice. We don't look into the aspect of medical sociology. And we launched a petition in 2016 to the National Human Rights Commission stating that what this country is doing to the intersex infants. Before 10 years or 15 years, female infanticide was an issue. But now intersex infanticide is a serious issue. And what we are doing to them is nothing. And the National Human Rights Commission forwarded the complaint to Health Ministry, and Health Ministry said, oh, with the consent of the patient, we do operate the patient, and with the consent of the patient or the guardian. But who is the patient? The child is the patient. How child can give consent? That's why the Madras High Court Madurai bench ruled, saying that the consent of the child, consent of the parent cannot be considered as the consent of the child. Our constitution upholds the bodily integrity of every single individual on this, wonderful land. And a lot of things need to be discussed in a more scientific manner, with more scientific evidence. We organized the first National Intersex Human Rights Conference in Delhi. We brought all the important, renowned genetic scientists and pediatric surgeons to perform per surgery. A pediatric surgeon gets around $2,500 to $3,000. If we take Tamil Nadu as 500, if you have calculator, please put 500 into 25. 500 into 25. Many states are too small, so we can say like 500 into 25. How much is that? So when you put 500 into 25, and then you again multiply it with $3,000, we are challenging $1 million economy of a huge, not a huge, I mean, which they are projecting as huge, a kind of a small number of pediatric surgeons who are violating the medical ethics and performing this horrible surgery, which is not okay, because in Bharatvarsha, in our dharma, it is about the Atma-jnana a person possesses. It is not about male, female, or whether the male, female is the sex identity, man, woman is the gender identity, and sexual orientation is something very different. I wish each and every institution must teach what is what. This will end so many miseries. This will end so many things what we are seeing around us. I mean, the horrible things what is happening to women or any other marginalized communities. We are not asking the professors to show pornography. My grandparents never watched a pornography to perform, to know what to perform in their bedroom. And when I mean sex, they are not even thinking about sex as a biological identity. Merely going to the bedroom is absurdity, because that much dry are we? What is wrong in talking about our own body? What is wrong in talking about our own self, which is residing in the body, and recognizing it? Because I didn't got the recognition, I stood up for the recognition, and I became the first intersex person to contest in legislative assembly elections. I represented no political party. And people did appreciate it from different political parties, and like I got nearly a considerable number of votes for only 3 days for which I campaigned actually. It taught me a lot. But then like contesting election is not my kind of thought or actual aim or whatever it is. To change the system, to engage with the system, the number of lawmakers, policymakers, academicians, and the students we have engaged, they brought the thoughts which we passed to them. It is helping them to lead a better life, to have a relook at the humanity, and to rehumanize the very kind of human values which we uphold. So, thank you so much.